The transitionary phase that you will experience after an awakening experience is always quite daunting and scary because, frankly, the whole way that you used to relate to the world now is pretty much dead in you, and you may try and piece back that old identity to try and relate to the world again in the same way, but it won't work. Hopefully, what will happen for you, though, is that that identity will begin to shift and you'll form a new identity. Or, even better, you'll land yourself in presence through hard work. You're going to have to surrender a little bit of that egoic identity in time because it's going to cause you a tremendous amount of pain. Now, we're going to look at how we might handle endings in our life and what these new beginnings might begin to show as a fruitful experience for you. So how do we handle these endings and these potential new beginnings? Well, hopefully we're going to handle it with grace. But will we actually do that? Well, if you're anything like me, you probably won't. No, it'll end up in many tantrums as we feel the real tangibility of something what feels like real being lost for us. Of course, these things were never real. They were just an identity. Let's say we lose a relationship, a loved one, an attachment. Perhaps we lose some aspect of our own health or whatever, or an identity. It's all identification. And actually, that's the most painful part about this process, is the loss of the identification that would have been in the relationship, in the attachment, in the etc, insert your thing here. So this can be a very scary experience, as I'm sure you'll remember when you were a child and you had a dummy or a pacifier or whatever it was, a comfort blanket that you had as a child. When it was time to give that up, there was a great sense of pain. And really, it's not in the thing itself, is it? Who's really attached actually to a piece of plastic? Nobody. It's in the emotional identification that we have with that comfort. And as that begins to drop away, that's incredibly sad for us. Now, this can extend, of course, to our negative attachments, because we seemingly seem to be very attached to our own limitations at times too, don't we? And so when we get the notification from life that it might be time to let go of this thing that's holding me back now from my next stage of evolution, we can also feel a sense of sadness, and the mind will tell us this is a lack of freedom too inside of ourselves. And that's actually not true. By letting go of that thing, we'll have more freedom inside of ourselves. But we can't see that with our limited minds in that first instance, can we? And that's what brings the fear in. So even this idea of transitioning is an interesting idea, because it implies that I had somewhere solid before and now I'm going to somewhere else more solid. And that's not really true. Maybe we would say our identity structure before our awakening happened was a solid identity. It wasn't really, though, and it wasn't ever a solid thing in itself. It was just a bunch of thoughts and attachments that kept repeating themselves that we were identifying with. So now as we transition, where are we going to? Well, we could go to another identity that will be less identity, perhaps, or it might just seem like less identity because we now have a spiritual identity, when in fact they're basically the same structure. Hopefully, our next stage in this transition will be to beingness, to presence, because this journey is about feeling, and presence is beautiful in its feeling. Then, as we solidify our presence here in ourselves, we might find that there might be a little bit extra joy, rather than relating to the world through fear, which we all do, don't we? So in a sense, this is a journey of incredible loss, but huge reward. Now, what do I mean? Well, we are losing something in a sense, and that's our identity. It's our mental, it's the way that we relate to our mind, isn't it? And that can be very frightening, as we seem to be very, very attached to that. But when I say we have a great reward, well, the reward is that which we've always been looking for in our external attempts to control and manipulate life anyway, which is that deep-seated contentment. Trust me, whenever we say, I want loads of money, well, you don't have to trust me, but hear what I have to say at least. Whenever we say we want loads of money, really we don't want these pieces of paper, do we? We want the feeling of security that that's going to give me. It's all felt. It's a felt feeling of contentment. The only reason we want anything in this life and we chase that is not for the thing itself, it's for the feeling that we think it's going to give us. Now, if we can circumvent that whole loop and come to the feeling in itself, then we won't need the external manifestations. And in fact, if any of us have had a look at the idea of law of attraction, whether I believe it completely doesn't really matter or not. You can make your own value judgments, take what works from me, leave what doesn't for you. But if we have that feeling of abundance inside of ourselves, or contentment or whatever, and the feeling that we don't actually need anything from the outside world, then isn't it more likely that those things might come? That non-neediness attitude towards these things, that isn't even an attitude, it's just the natural way of beingness, then it's probably more likely that those things will come into our experience. So expect to lose your mind. But also that's relatively true, because we will be losing our old mental way of relating to the world, and that can make you question whether you've gone crazy. And from a societal view, you absolutely have. But from a sanity view and from a real world view, you absolutely haven't. Our lives were not made for us to have huge identities and think we're this great thing in this world. Our lives were here for us to be, to live, to experience life through the vehicle of this beautiful body that we've luckily and graciously been given by life. And so the portal through which your new life is going to come about is through presence, it's through beingness, it's through feeling. Those three things are one and the same. We don't have to mentally know what our purpose, what our goal for life is, but we have to commit to feeling. And the best way to do that I've ever found is through sadhana. Sadhana is your daily spiritual practice to bring about the highest level of feeling and sensitivity in the system. It's feeling that will then begin to guide you to that thing that it seems to be that you would like to do in your life, but also that life would probably also think that you'll be good at. This is the thing about purpose. You have to be good at it, and it has to feel right for you, right? Otherwise, this path is worthless to us. If it's not a real yes for you, you're not going to really want to do it, and you're not going to be able to transmute the hard times and the chaos of life if we don't have a really soul-based purpose. So this is why this is so important to come at it from a feeling basis. Feeling will lead to a mental idea, but it can't go from a mental idea to a feeling. We've just got this the wrong way around. So we have to, in a way, surrender to the unknown, surrender to a new way of being, literally, and then through that, wonderful things will come through you, and you'll begin to see, this might be the thing for me. Then, of course, you must act physically upon those things. And then this, in a way, is us coming away from this old version of life and into this new version of life. I had to do it all, in a way, but I was prompted by, maybe we could say, spirit, beingness, presence, the whole way. It's a real co-creation, and it's a little dance that we do with life. And more fundamentally and equally, it's this little dance that we are, that is life, that will create. I hope this video helps. Here's to your transition and your authentic life. I love you lots. Namaste. Thanks for watching this video. If you made it this far, then I almost guarantee that you enjoyed it, which is great. And if you enjoy these sorts of subjects, then we have another video for you here. This is about the cocoon phase of the awakening, or perhaps as it's famously known on YouTube, the hermit phase. If you're going through a transitionary moment, you may well be experiencing this too. So it's well worth a watch. Also, down below you can check out and apply for the yogic tradition. We do all sorts of trainings and sadhana. If you're really wanting to get started on this path, then that's where you can find us, in the links or in the descriptions below.